Everybody loves bread, but one of the saddest things that I can think of is when bread is left in the pantry for too long and then it goes stale and then it is inevitably thrown away because it's stale. But what if I told you there's a beautiful magical world where a stale bread is the star? Well, I'm going to take you there today. Camera even on? We'll do this anyway. One of life's best hidden treasures is stale bread. There's a plethora of ways that you can use stale bread that have been developed over the ages ever since bread was created. I would assume bread probably went bad pretty quickly, so as soon as bread went stale, they had to find a way to use it ASAP. That's just an assumption. I don't actually know the history of that portion. I have not done the research there, so please don't quote me on that. Now, this video was in a battle of wings versus how to use stale bread, and believe it or not, stale bread won over wings on my Instagram, which, by the way, if you don't follow, go check out my Instagram. It's in the link below. With all that said, let's do this thing. Yeah.
Now, the first thing we're gonna do to start ourselves off is homemade breadcrumbs. They're versatile, they're widely used, they're great. So you're gonna start with some stale bread. The amount doesn't really matter. That's the great thing about making breadcrumbs from scratch, is that you can use however much or however little bread that you do happen to have. The more the merrier, but you know, hey, use what you got. And you're gonna cut that bread into small cubes that'll fit into a food processor. Some people will remove the crust and just do the inside of the bread, but if you're using a food processor, you don't actually have to do that at all. Plus, you know, the whole point of this is to reduce waste, so like, why would you do that? But anyway, put that all in a food processor and blend it until it gets as fine as it can. It will have a stopping point that it just kind of won't get any finer. Don't worry about that. We'll blend it again after we dry it. So once you've done that, spread that on a baking sheet and bake it at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 to 30 minutes, stirring often until it is totally dry. Once it's completely dry, pull it out and let it cool for about 10 minutes. Now, most people like finer breadcrumbs, so if you want them finer, just let them cool down completely and blend them again in your food processor until they're as fine as you like it. Store them in a nice airtight container and they should be good for about 2 to 3 weeks. You can also freeze them for up to 4 months and use them in whatever you want, dude. You can use it for meatballs, breading, stuffing, you name it. So many options with this stuff. Number 2, homemade croutons. These are super easy as well. All you're gonna do is cut your bread into 1 inch by 1 inch cubes. Keep them as even as possible because when they get toasted, if you have ones that are significantly smaller than the other, they'll be way too crunchy and overbaked. For this recipe, I started with half a loaf of stale bread, which equated to about 240 grams or half a pound. Now, once you have your half loaf cubed up, you're gonna mix together 3 tablespoons or 45 milliliters of extra virgin olive oil or melted butter if you're feeling real naughty, 1 clove of freshly grated garlic, fresh cracked black pepper, then realize you weren't thinking about bowl size and transfer it to the properly sized bowl. I've really been having a day with picking the right bowl recently. Season it with flaky salt. We're just getting this going. We're actually gonna season it again later, but yeah, you know. And oh, by the way, flaky salt making a comeback. Give everything a little stir to get to know each other, and toss your bread cubes in that oil mixture. Really good job with that bowl choice too, as you can see. And make sure at this point when you're tossing it that you're seasoning it again with flaky salt or regular salt until it's salty enough to your liking. Transfer this to a rim baking sheet and give it an extra drizzle of olive oil just for good measure, a little extra flaky sea salt if it needs it, and pop it in the oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 minutes, stir them a little bit, and then another 5 to 10 more minutes until they're crisp and lightly browned. Now, with croutons brings on number 3, the Italian bread and tomato salad Panzanella. Now, I like to lightly toast these. You don't necessarily have to, but I like to. We're not looking to make them super duper crunchy. We're just looking to give them a light little toast on the outside. So you're gonna start by cutting them up into 1 inch by 1 inch cubes. Yet again, give them a light, tiny little drizzle of olive oil. Be sure to season them with flaky salt as well, obviously. And bake them at 350 for about 5 to 8 minutes until they're just very lightly toasted. Now you're gonna cut up 1.5 pounds of fresh tomatoes into little wedges. You can make them into whatever size you want. I like wedges. You can make them into quarters or eighths. It's up to you. And you're gonna put them in a mesh strainer placed over a bowl, season them pretty generously with kosher salt, and just let them sit there and drain some of their beautiful juices into the bottom. About 5 to 10 minutes. Now to make this salad dressing, you're gonna start off by using all of that tomato juice that you drained from those fresh tomatoes. Do not throw that stuff away. It is liquid gold. Add in 3.5 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, some freshly cracked black pepper, man that is hard to say, kosher salt to taste, 1 freshly grated clove of garlic. Give it a good whisk and then taste it to make sure all the seasoning is in the right place. Then add your freshly toasted bread and tomatoes directly to the salad dressing. Toss to thoroughly coat all the ingredients. I switched to a larger bowl to make sure it was tossed better with more room to toss, so make sure you do that too. And as with all good food making, make sure you're tasting it one last time to make sure everything's on par, see if it needs more olive oil or salt, because this is what's gonna make the salad really super good. Then just serve that bad boy up with some freshly shaved parmesan, the good stuff, and some freshly torn basil leaves. And that's it. Now for number 4, bread pudding, which is basically a bread-based dessert that, if done correctly, creates like sort of a nice custardy inside. In a small saucepan, melt a 1/4 cup or 56 grams of butter and a 1/2 cup or 110 grams of sugar over medium-low heat. Now later in this recipe, you're gonna be adding 2 1/3 cup or 515 milliliters of milk, but for right now, you're just gonna add a little splash of that milk that's already pre-measured. Just add a little splash of that to this mixture and continue to heat up the mixture until the butter is completely melted and the sugar is completely dissolved. Once it's dissolved and melted, add the remainder of your milk and cool it down until it's room temperature. To that cooled mixture, you're gonna add 2 teaspoons or 10 milliliters of vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon or 18 grams of ground cinnamon, and 3 eggs plus 1 egg yolk beaten. Whisk that mixture together until everything is evenly distributed, and pour that mixture over 6 cups or 380 grams of cubed bread in a brownie pan. Now you can let this mixture soak for about 25 minutes to an hour if you really want to get that custardy texture. If you're in a hurry, just let it soak for about 10 or 15 minutes and then pop it in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes or until the custard is just set. Do not overcook this or you're going to get scrambled egg. You want the center to jiggle just ever so slightly whenever you shake it. And last but not least, number 5 is French toast. Now, I already have a recipe for this in another video, so the link will be down below in the description. You know, I just thought it would be redundant to film it again. So if you want to know how to make the French toast that I made in this video, just click the link below. And that is another great way to use your stale bread.
Alright guys, and that is it. Stale bread, multiple uses. I hope this was genuinely informative. I think a takeaway from this video is don't waste your food, right? There's so many things that go in the process of making your food and getting your food to your table. There's chefs that I've worked for and a lot of them have said the same thing. And you know, there's some dishes on a menu that will say essentially it takes 6 months to grow that food, 6 days to get it to you, 6 hours to get the recipe all put together, 3 minutes to plate it, and 30 seconds for someone to eat it, right? There's all of these different things that are happening leading up to the final product, and it only takes them 30 seconds to eat it. We're talking about small plates here, not like a full entree or something, a small plate of something. But the point is, all of these massive time-consuming things lead up to one product, and it's the worst when that thing gets wasted, you know? Takeaway of this video is there are ways to use your food and not waste it.
Chove chuva, chove sem parar. Chove chuva.
If you enjoyed this video or you learned something, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you next week.
Deus, nosso Senhor, pra chuva parar de molhar o meu divino amor, que é muito lindo, é mais que o infinito.